All right, people. So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our current affairs lecture series. Now, you see, we have changed the strategy of our current affairs lecture series. Earlier, we used to cover daily current affairs in which every day's newspapers would we would pick up important topics from every day's newspaper and then present them to you. This time around, we are going to cover current affairs subject wise. So we have divided the entire week into different subjects. So on Monday, there will be economics related current affairs. On Tuesday, it will be polity. On Wednesday, it would be international relations. On Thursday, geography, environment. On Friday, it will be social issues. And on Saturdays, it will be science and tech. And with every lecture, we will cover 1 week's current affairs. So today is Monday, and we are going to cover economics related current affairs from the past 1 week, right? Now, we are going to begin this lecture, but before beginning this lecture, let me tell this to you that just watching this lecture would be job half done. Just after watching it, you need to revise them as well because this revision would actually help you solidify these current affairs in your memory. Otherwise, you'll quickly forget them. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us, and these notes shall be shared on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. All right, then, let's begin today's lecture. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. So let's begin. So current affairs, economics, and this would be June part 1. Since we are covering 1 week's current affairs, so for the month of June, economics would have 4 parts and each and every subject would have 4 parts because there are 4 weeks in 1 month. Right. So what are the topics? Well, topic number 1 is balance of RBI's balance sheet and ECF. ECF basically stands for Economic Capital Framework. The reason is that this time around, RBI has transferred record money to the government. Now, this transfer of money, surplus money that the RBI earns, is based on a formula. That formula is called Economic Capital Framework. So we'll talk about this. Then we'll talk about the pending June MPC meeting. Okay, between June 3 to June 5, Monetary Policy Committee of RBI will meet, and this Monetary Policy Committee decides the monetary policy of the country using repo rate, right? So what is going to be RBI's stance with respect to monetary policy? Well, we'll talk about this. Then we'll talk about India's semiconductor mission to facilitate investors. Well, the government has launched investor portal. What are going to be its benefits? We are going to talk about that. And in the end, we'll talk about SIDBI. How SIDBI has changed to promote MSME sector because SIDBI is a development bank for MSMEs only. So these are the 4 news items that we shall zero in our attention on. So let's start discussing them one by one. Starting with topic number 1, the balance of RBI's balance sheet and economic capital framework. You see, you should know this, that RBI is basically an agency of the government. And RBI has been given some very important responsibilities with respect to the economy of our country. First of all, it manages the credit policy of India. It regulates banks and NBFCs. And the other more important task of RBI is monetary policy. And what is monetary policy? Basically regulating the money supply of the country. And that money supply can be regulated through various levers. One such lever is repo rate, right? Now, in performing these functions, RBI has some assets as well as some liabilities. And because RBI has this balance sheet, it also earns a lot of money. RBI makes a lot of profit. Now, some of that profit RBI keeps with itself. Why? For emergencies. In future, if there is an emergency, RBI should have sufficient capital to take care of that. But the rest of that profit is shared with the government. Okay. Now, there is a proper formula on the basis of which RBI decides. Just a second. I'm so sorry. On the basis of which RBI decides that how much money should it keep with itself and how much money should it transfer, right? That formula is called Economic Capital Framework. Now, the reason why we are discussing this now is because RBI transferred record amount of money to the government. It was to the tune of 2.87 lakh crore. Never in the history of RBI has transferred this amount of money. Okay, this much money. So we'll talk about this formula and we'll talk about the reasons why RBI was able to transfer this surplus to the government. Okay, so let's begin. So balance of RBI's balance sheet. ECF, Economic Capital Framework. Okay, so in the introduction. Well, a few weeks back, RBI announced that it is going to transfer 2.87 lakh crore to the government. Now, recently, RBI released its annual report. And in that annual report, RBI basically showed that how was it able to transfer this much amount of money to the government. Okay, now, The thing is that RBI says that, look, we earn a lot of profit because of our assets and liabilities, and we keep some of that profit in a special fund for emergencies that is called CRB, and then the rest of it is transferred to the government. The surplus is transferred to the government, right? Now, there were two reasons why RBI was able to transfer this much amount to the government. Number one reason was RBI's profits increased. And number two reason was RBI reduced the amount of money it saves for this emergency fund. Okay, because of that, number one, profits increased, and number two, reduction in the amount of CRB actually allowed RBI to have a lot of surplus which it could transfer. Yes. Now, first of all, let's take a look at this economic capital framework, the formula based on which RBI decides how much money to give to the government, how much money should be given to CRB. Okay. Now, this is the formula. This is the economic capital framework. And this formula is based on the recommendations of a committee. That committee is called Bimal-Jalan Committee. The official name of this committee was actually Economic Capital Framework Committee, but because its chairmanship was with Mr. Bimal-Jalan, that is why it is called Bimal-Jalan Committee. Now, Bimal-Jalan Committee said that, look, you earn a lot of money. That money is transferred to your CRB for emergencies and the government, right? Bimal-Jalan gave a formula. Bimal-Jalan says that 4.5 to 7.5% of your balance sheet should be given to CRB. Okay. Now, the reason why Bimal-Jalan gave this in the form of a range, he did not say 6%, 2%, no, he gave a range. The reason why this range was given was to allow RBI with some flexibility. If times are really good, RBI can keep only 4.5%. If times are really bad, RBI will keep 7.5% in its CRB. So the ceiling to this is 7.5%, and the rest of it is transferred to the government as per Bimal-Jalan Committee. Simple. Now, the ceiling is 7.5%, remember. But this time around, RBI decided to reduce that ceiling to 6.5%. So earlier, RBI used to save 7.5% to CRB. Now, RBI reduced that by 1% to 6.5%. This unlocked another 92,000 crore in surplus, which was transferred to the government. Okay, extra. This is the extra amount. Otherwise, if they would have kept it at 7.5%, then this 92,000 crore extra wouldn't have been generated. So this is reason number one, that RBI decided to reduce its CRB. Okay. Reason number two was increase in money. Right. So this is the economic capital framework based on Bimal-Jalan Committee's guidelines. Okay. So RBI capped CRB's contingent risk buffer for risk management, 6.5%. Earlier, it used to be 7.5%. By choosing 6.5% instead of 7.5%, well, RBI added 92,000 crore to its surplus. Had RBI kept it at 7.5%, RBI would have been able to transfer only 1.95 lakh crores to the government. But because of this extra 92,000 crore, now the amount was 2.87 lakh crore. This was reason number one. Reason number two was RBI earned record profit. Now, what are the reasons behind this increase in profit of RBI? Well, there are three particular reasons. Catalysts for record surplus. First of all, RBI earns a lot of money through foreign exchange. RBI has a lot of forex reserves. Let's suppose these forex reserves are in the form of dollars, right? Now, because rupee was declining, RBI, to protect rupee, had to sell some of these dollars. Okay? Because when rupee is declining, to arrest that decline, RBI sells dollars in the market. Now, these dollars were purchased by RBI at 80 rupees per dollar. But now when RBI was selling it, it was selling it at 95. So don't you see, RBI earns 15 rupees per dollar. Yes, this is the source of RBI's money. Then number two, well, some of these dollars are invested by RBI in US bonds, US Treasury bills. Recently, US increased interest rates offered on these treasury bills. So RBI's interest income also increased. This is another reason. And the other reason was, well, recently RBI decided to increase its gold reserves. And that is, RBI is not alone in this. Almost every central bank in the world decided to increase its gold reserves. Earlier, gold reserves formed just 5.9% of the total forex, but today it is 16.7%. And we have seen this, that gold has increased its value in the recent years. So RBI also earned a lot of money because of this revaluation. Yes, so these are the three reasons. Now, because of these things, RBI was able to give record surplus. Now, this is a very good thing for India's economy, especially the government. How? What benefits are accruing to the government or Indian economy at large? So, implications. First of all, because of Iran war, because of high natural gas prices, and natural gas is used as a raw material for fertilizers. So because of high energy prices, high fertilizer prices, well, government subsidy bill also increased because government provides subsidy on market rate. If this market rate would increase, government has promised a particular fixed price. If market rate would increase, well, the subsidy bill would also increase. Now, this extra subsidy bill would have really troubled the government had this 2.87 lakh crore not come. But this came, and this was able to absorb this extra subsidy bill. If 2.87 lakh crore were not given to the government to fulfill its obligations in this subsidy thing, our government would have had to divert some of its infrastructure spending towards subsidies. So it would have had to reduce infrastructure spending so that it can have enough money for subsidies. Okay. Now, infrastructure spending actually boosts the growth of the economy. So growth would have been sacrificed because of this subsidy. But with this 2.87 lakh crore, government need not divert this spending. And that is why India's growth story is going on as it would have. So this is there. And this third thing is that generally we are used to hearing that there is this tussle between RBI and the government, finance ministry and RBI. But this time around, this particular action of RBI shows that RBI's monetary policy and government's fiscal policy are totally in sync. This is a good example of that. And this is good for the nation. Had these two policies been at loggerheads, the nation would have suffered. But that is not happening. So this is good news all around. That's the thing you had to know. Okay, that is why I brought this topic up in today's lecture. So it's over now. Let's move on to second topic, and that is impending status quo at the June MPC meet. Now, MPC stands for Monetary Policy Committee, a committee of RBI, which is tasked with deciding repo rate. Because with the decision on repo rate, well, country's money supply gets altered. So MPC is tasked with deciding country's monetary policy. And what is monetary policy? The monetary policy is nothing but increasing or decreasing money supply. Whenever RBI feels that, well, inflation is really high and we need to control it, RBI reduces money supply. And whenever RBI feels that inflation is not a problem, now we should focus on growth, then RBI increases money supply. With more money, more investment, more growth. Right? Make sense? Now, to reduce money supply, RBI increases repo rate. To increase money supply, RBI reduces repo rate. Repo rate and money supply have an inverse relationship. Yes. Now, this time around, Monetary Policy Committee is going to take a decision between June 3 to June 5. Now, people are forecasting that RBI is going to keep a neutral stance, which means neither increase money supply nor decrease money supply. And why so? The reason is that earlier it was projected that to boost economic growth, RBI would reduce repo rate to increase money supply. But because of Iran war, because of inflation, and because of poor monsoon forecasts, well, RBI is being cautious and RBI is not reducing repo rate, it is keeping it unchanged, status quo. Okay, so what are the reasons behind this neutral stance? We'll investigate in this topic. So let's begin, right? Impending status quo at June MPC meet. So, as RBI's MPC prepares for its upcoming meeting, macroeconomic indicators and institutional nowcasts. Nowcasts are basically quick forecasts of short term. Okay, strongly point towards a continued status quo on the policy repo rate. Now, currently, RBI governor, the chairperson of MPC is Sanjay Malhotra. Well, he's going to be involved in this delicate balancing act. To boost growth, you need to reduce repo rate, but inflation is also a concern. Okay, what is the current situation? So the current situation is that policy repo rate is at 5.25%. And earlier people had projected that RBI is going to reduce that to boost growth. But now inflation is looming large, so it will be kept unchanged. The standing deposit facility is at 5%, MSF rate and bank rate at 5.5%, and RBI's monetary policy stance is neutral. You see, monetary policy stance is of three types. Accommodative, which means that you are going to increase money supply, and that happens by reducing repo rate. Or tight, which means you are going to reduce money supply, and that happens by increasing repo rate. But neutral means that you won't change money supply. Your stance is neutral, you won't do anything, you are following a wait and watch approach. That is why RBI is deciding to keep the repo rate unchanged. Now why? Primary focus is to boost growth. To boost growth, you need to increase money supply. Money supply, with increase in money supply, inflation is also going to get a boost. Now, if inflation is already very low, RBI doesn't mind boosting this inflation to boost growth. But if inflation or the risk of inflation is high, then RBI is scared of reducing repo rate or increasing money supply. That is the quagmire that RBI finds itself in. Yes, it wants to boost growth, but because of Iran war and poor monsoon predictions, inflation risk is also looming large, and that is why RBI is following this wait and watch approach. This is the policy stance. Okay? Neutral. RBI is going to follow a neutral stance. Now, the reason why RBI is becoming concerned of inflation, hardening trajectory. Hardening trajectory means that RBI is really concerned of inflation, won't change repo rate or won't reduce it. Softening means that RBI isn't worried about inflation and would reduce repo rate. The primary factor blocking immediate rate cuts is the threat of imported inflation. Okay? So inflation risk is really high because natural gas prices, crude oil prices, they are all are spiraling out of control because of, well, Iran war and the blockage in Strait of Hormuz. Then the other thing is, because of El Nino, monsoon prediction is really poor. Now, most of India's agriculture or food is rain-fed agriculture. So food supply is going to get reduced. Because if there is poor monsoon, food supply is going to get reduced. Now, food demand is high because of growing population, but if supply falls, you all know this relationship between demand and supply. Whenever demand is high, inflation is high, right? So because of this fall in food supply, food inflation is going to be high. So energy prices are high, food inflation is high. Well, things are not looking good. That is why RBI has decided to do this. There is another reason why RBI is deciding not to reduce repo rate, and that is external factors. What are these external factors? We all know what is happening between dollar and rupee. Rupee is depreciating continuously. There is a lot of downward pressure on rupee, right? Now, this downward pressure is going to accelerate if from India, more and more foreign investors leave. Yes, and this downward pressure is going to stop. And in fact, well, rupee is going to gain if more and more foreign investors come to India. Yes, so we need more foreign investment in India. That is when rupee's decline would stop and in fact rupee would gain. Now the thing is, foreign investors come to India for earning money. Now if India's interest rate is high, that means return for investment in India is high. When return for investment in India is high, well, more and more foreign investors would come. But if interest rate is low, return is low, foreign investors won't come. And not only that, existing investors would go out and rupee would fall further. Now, if RBI decides to reduce repo rate, interest rates would fall, existing foreign investors would get out, and rupee would fall further. So it's because of rupee also that RBI has decided not to reduce repo rate. You understand the dynamics now? This is the thing, right? Okay. Now let's move forward to third news item, and that is India Semiconductor Mission Investor Portal. Now you see, in this day and age, in 21st century, we all are surrounded with electronics gadgets. In fact, everything we use is electronics, right? Now, these electronics require a key component, and that is these microchips, which are made up of semiconductors. Now, the thing is, India feels really vulnerable when it comes to these microchips because India doesn't manufacture any of these microchips on its own. India is import dependent. And because India is import dependent, all electronics items, whether they are manufactured in India or imported from abroad, are dependent on these microchips. Okay? India's import dependence is really problematic. Now, if tomorrow some country decides not to give India these microchips, well, all electronic items production would stop. In fact, it happened during COVID also. Because of COVID, well, microchip imports stopped a little. And because of that, well, various car manufacturers weren't able to deliver their cars to their customers. Why? Because cars also require microchips, because cars also have electronic gadgets. Yes. So everything collapses if you do not have microchips. Now, this is a very significant choke point for India's economy. That is why India decided to manufacture microchips on its own, become Atmanirbhar, self-reliant in terms of microchips. And for that, India launched India Semiconductor Mission. The aim is to have its own factories of manufacturing microchips in India. Yes. Now, if you want factories in India, you need money. Some money would come from domestic investors, but a lot of money would come from foreign investors. And foreign investors not only bring capital, they also bring technology. So we need to attract foreign investors for this particular thing if India really wants to become self-reliant. The problem is that foreign investors are not that happy about entering India. Why? Because they are really, really worried about bureaucratic red tape, bureaucratic processes. Now, to attract them or to facilitate foreign investors, well, under India Semiconductor Mission, we have launched a single window portal, online portal. Earlier, these foreign investors had to move files, fill application forms in different ministries and departments. Not anymore. Now they just have to go to this single window and fulfill all their processes over there. Okay. Plus, government is going to facilitate them so that they are not harassed by these government departments. This is the purpose of this. Okay. So let's talk about this. India Semiconductor Mission Investor Portal. So, Ministry of Electronics and IT launched a dedicated online single window interface titled Investor Support Portal under ISM. Okay. Now, what are the three pillars of this portal? Secure role-based single window. No need to go to any other government website, just go over here. Then for every foreign investor, a nodal officer would be attached. This nodal officer, his job would be coordination between different departments and ministries. A foreign investor needs to move files to different departments and ministries. Not anymore. They just have to contact this nodal officer. It would be the job of this nodal officer to coordinate with different departments and ministries. Okay. And if any foreign investor has any complaint, well, his grievance redressal mechanism would be time bound. There would be deadlines. So foreign investors would be more encouraged, right? So these are the three pillars. Now, what are going to be the benefits of this move? Well, number one, global supply chains from which, the reason why which India felt vulnerable. Well, now they will be shifted to India. Earlier, we were dependent on other countries. Now, these supply chains would would originate from India. So, India won't feel vulnerable. This would also reduce our import bill. Then, this is a high-tech, semiconductor manufacturing is a high-tech sector. This would require deep tech investments. These deep tech investments would not only bring technology to India, money to India, but it would also generate high-level skilled jobs in India. And not only that, it will boost our manufacturing sector, which would eventually add to our GDP. Yes? Plus, there is another thing. Well, if there is a big semiconductor plant in India, well, this semiconductor plant would also require certain components for certain things, packaging material and whatnot. Those components would be provided by nearby small companies, MSMEs. So this would also give a boost to India's MSMEs also. Overall, the entire region's economy would grow. So these are the benefits, right? And now let's move on to last topic of the day, and that is structural evolution of SIDBI. You see, for different sectors, to develop different sectors, well, India has the concept of development banks. For rural development and agriculture, there is NABARD. For small industries, there is SIDBI, Small Industrial Development Bank of India. Now, recently, SIDBI, or the ministers responsible for SIDBI, well, they have said that SIDBI's role needs to evolve if we really want to boost MSME sector. Okay, now what is this evolution? What needs to be done? And what reforms have already been undertaken by SIDBI? Let's talk about this very quickly. This is basically cramming based portion. So we won't spend that much time on this topic as far as the lecture is concerned, but your notes are pretty detailed. So do check that out. Okay. All right, let's begin. So structural evolution of SIDBI. So during National MSME Conclaves and the celebration of 37th Foundation Day of SIDBI, Union Finance Ministry and issued a clear mandate to SIDBI. Now, what is this clear mandate? Now, listen to me very carefully. All these development banks, whether it's NABARD or it's SIDBI, these development banks, what they do is they provide refinance. What they do? What do they do? Basically, let's take the example of SIDBI. SIDBI provides loan or credit to banks at very low interest rates on the condition that banks would use that money to provide to MSMEs. So in a sense, SIDBI is indirectly developing MSMEs, not directly, indirectly. Okay, this is known as refinance. But now government has advised SIDBI to even go directly invest in MSMEs without the intermediary of banks. The reason for that is that there are certain MSMEs which are high risk, high tech companies, green technology companies, or deep tech companies. Now, this is a highly risky business because you don't know whether your new technology will work or not, or whether it will be a commercial success or not. So banks are reluctant to give money to these MSMEs. Why? Because they're afraid whether these MSMEs would be able to return their money or not, right? But we can't let that happen, because if this happens, then there would be no MSME investing or work on high-tech things. India's technology would be dwarfed forever. Therefore, to support these high-risk MSMEs, SIDBI needs to go direct. That's what Union Finance Ministry told SIDBI, that your traditional role was refinance, indirect. Now go direct. Okay? Moving beyond refinancing. The historical track was refinance. But now, deploy money directly into deep tech, green tech, risk-heavy industrial sectors. Okay? Now, for this particular reason, SIDBI has launched various reforms. You should be aware of these reforms. Okay? Key programs and digital reforms. More initiative of SIDBI, modernization of rural enterprises. So 10,000 rural micro, non-agricultural companies would be developed through capital. Then micro credit card scheme. There are micro companies, small companies, medium companies. Micro companies are generally short of money, credit. So SIDBI launched micro credit card scheme. These micro enterprises would be given this credit card under which they can avail loans up to 5 lakhs. Then SIDBI has decided to become co-lenders with RRBs. Regional rural banks have a very good network in rural areas. Over there, SIDBI does not have enough branches. So SIDBI is going to use the network of RRBs to provide loans along with RRBs to rural non-agricultural enterprises. Okay. Plus, SIDBI is expanding its physical footprint, increasing its level of branches, plus increasing its number of branches. Plus, it has launched various digital initiatives also, FitRank, GST Sahay portals and all. Okay. Now, the benefit of all of this would be, first of all, SIDBI provides collateral-free loans. Some micro enterprises do not, they want credit, but they do not have big collaterals, and that is why they can't receive credit. SIDBI is going to dismantle this problem. Then there are various schemes of SIDBI in which they provide very low interest rate loans to, transgender owned companies, women owned companies, so that there is inclusive growth. So this is good. Plus, if MSME sector gets a huge boost, that will lay a very good foundation for Vikasit Bharat 2047. The aim of Government of India, by 2047, we want to become developed, right? Vikasit Bharat. So MSME is going to lay the foundation for that, and SIDBI plays a critical role for that. right? So these are the benefits. And that would be all. With that, we conclude today's lecture. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. I'm sure about it. Now, it would add more value if you're consistent and regular with this lecture series and you revise this lecture from the notes provided by us. Please do not forget to do that. On that note, I shall be signing off with the promise of seeing you again with another lecture in this lecture series called Current Affairs. Thank you, everyone.